Cervical cancer is the second leading cause of cancer-related deaths among Nigerian women from ages 15 to 44. Determined to bring this needless death of women to the barest minimum, Nigeria launched a mass human papillomavirus vaccination campaign to reduce the incidence of cervical cancer. Mohamed Ali Party, the coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare, said, and I quote, "The loss of about 8,000 Nigerian women yearly from a disease that is preventable is unacceptable." End of quote. Welcome to 30 Minutes on NTA News 24. This edition is focusing on introduction of HPV vaccines to save girls and women from the threat of cervical cancer. I'm Lydia Sampson. Reports indicate that widespread HPV vaccination has the potential to reduce cervical cancer incidence around the world by as much as 90%. That is the main reason why HPV vaccination is recommended for all children ages from 11 to 12 and in Nigeria from 9 to 14 years to protect against cancer caused by HPV infections. The question is, what is the HPV vaccine? How effective is it in cancer prevention? What makes the vaccine a unique prevention method? Thomas Ogbetere sought answers to these and other questions in our first report. Thomas, take it from here.
Nigeria has introduced human papillomavirus HPV vaccines into its routine immunization system, aiming to reach 7.7 million girls, the largest number in a single round of HPV vaccination in the African region. In a vaccination drive against the virus that causes nearly all cases of cervical cancer, girls aged 9 to 14 years will receive a single dose of the vaccine, which is highly efficacious in preventing infection with HPV type 16 and 18 that are known to cause at least 70% of cervical cancers. According to experts, in Nigeria, cervical cancer is the third most common cancer and second most frequent cause of cancer deaths among women aged between 15 and 44 years. In 2020 data, the latest data available, Nigeria recorded 12,000 new cases and 8,000 deaths from cervical cancer.
When you get infected with the virus, it can be transmitted through several forms, but most importantly, it's transmitted through sexual intercourse. So when this virus gets into your system, it stays in the body for a very long time. It can actually stay in the body for as long as 20 years, 30 years without causing any problem. It is now undergo some form of mutation and then start causing problem. And most of the problem that it causes is that it attacks the cervix and causing the cervical cancer that we all hear about. So most of the time, when you see somebody presenting with cervical cancer, the virus must have been contacted several years back. So somebody that is presenting maybe at 50 years of age, and you're making a diagnosis of cervical cancer, that virus, if it was caused by the HPV, the human papillomavirus, that person probably may have contacted it like more than 30 years ago. So it's contacted as early as at the onset of sexual intercourse.
And human papillomavirus is a virus among, it has a family. You know, microorganisms has family, just like human beings. They have families. They are about 200 in number. But the human papillomavirus was the one that found to infect human beings. And usually is transmitted through sexual intercourse. It's sexually transmitted. And then the rest of them are found in animals and the rest, not really found in human beings. And then the infection is, as I said, is transmitted sexually, and then it goes from one person to another when you are not stick to one person. It goes around like that. Usually the woman harbors more of it, and what it does, it goes around the mouth of the womb of a woman, the mouth of the womb, which is called cervix, and forms some deposit there and remain there for about 10 years or more before it will start manifesting. But usually it's always silent. Even for the men, it's always silent. It doesn't cause anything. You will not feel anything. It is after some time then you start having some symptoms. For man, it comes out like rashes around the penile glands. For the woman, it goes to the round mouth of the womb and form the same rashes and growth, which eventually, after a long period of time, it becomes cancerous and then begins to rotting, and then sometimes it bleeds just like any other cancer.
The actual cause of cervical cancer is a viral organism, which is called the human papillomavirus. In most cases, over 90% is caused by that through sexual transmission mostly. However, there are other causes, and then we have a lot of risk factors. That's factors that like multiple sexual partners.
Experts are saddened with a loss of about 8,000 Nigerian women yearly from a disease that is preventable, reiterating that it is completely unacceptable, noting that cervical cancer is mostly caused by HPV and parents can avoid physical and financial pain by protecting their children with a single dose of the vaccine, saving lives and producing quality health, as well as protecting the well-being of Nigerians. Therefore, the onset of the vaccination campaign, they acknowledge, is an opportunity to safeguard the girl child from the scourge of cervical cancer in the future.
The best thing our people can do is to bring out our daughters to come and be vaccinated, because that will protect them from cervical cancer.
Cervical cancer is a major burden throughout the world. It's a global public health problem, and it particularly mostly affects sub-Saharan Africa.
The Primary Healthcare Development Agency Health Education Team will also further uptake of the vaccine for human papillomavirus. All this is aimed at identifying, treating, and preventing cervical cancer.
That in 95% of the cases, it is caused by human papillomavirus. So let's tackle human papillomavirus. And this vaccine has been shown to prevent infection by human papillomavirus.
So it's always better to detect it early. And then once it's detected early, it's curable. Once you excise that area, and then it goes off and dies off.
They implore parents to dutifully ensure that this generation girls, who are tomorrow's women, disrupt the preventable loss of lives to cervical cancer in addition to other untold hardship, loss, and pains. Experts also say that the ongoing campaigns and the mass vaccination campaign in schools and communities is being carried out simultaneously in 16 states and the Federal Capital Territory.
After the flagging off, we flag it off and then we vaccinate for 5 days, and then we do 2 days mop-up, and then from there we euthanize. Because the entire aim and objective is that to put it under the routine immunization. Routine immunization are the immunizations that you carry your child to the health facility to get the vaccines. As younger age, as you deliver a child, you go from BCG at birth to the rest of the vaccination. And that is where we put the human papillomavirus. Usually, the policy of the government in Nigeria is that we introduce new vaccine one after the other. One after the other. If you remember, last 2 years, we introduced one vaccine. And then now, rotavirus vaccine. And now we are introducing human papillomavirus vaccine. Gradually like that, as we are getting the vaccine, as the vaccine are coming out and coming to Nigeria, we are introducing them one after the other. Because we cannot introduce the vaccine just at once. Too many vaccines. No, we introduce them gradually. So the entire aim now is to introduce human papillomavirus vaccine into routine immunization.
Like I've said, that this vaccine is not a new vaccine. It has been available, especially in private health facilities. You go there to get it for a fee. I've mentioned as much as 50,000 naira. But what government has done now is to introduce it into the routine immunization schedule. So the way you take your child to go for vaccination, measles, yellow fever, meningitis, and all the other vaccines, polio, penta, and the rest that we have in our routine immunization schedule, this human papillomavirus vaccine is now being introduced into the routine immunization schedule for girls aged 9 years. So once a girl gets to 9 years of age, you go to the facility to go and take this vaccine.
The second phase of the vaccination introduction is set to start in the first quarter of 2024 in 21 states.
The rollout of this vaccination is in 2 phases. We have phase 1, which is just what happened. Then we have phase 2 that will happen next year, okay, by first quarter of next year. So for this phase 1, that is where FCT is involved. We have 15 states plus FCT. Those 15 states includes, we have Jigawa, we have Kano, we have Bauchi, we have Adamawa, we have Taraba, we have Benue, we have Nasarawa, we have Kebbi, Osun, Ogun, Bayelsa, Abia, Akwa Ibom, Enugu, and FCT. So these are the 15 states plus FCT that have introduced in this first phase. So by February next year, the second phase will introduce. The remaining states that I have not mentioned will introduce. Reason, recall I've told you that this is a huge investment. You know, when we're saying that this vaccine is free of charge, somebody is actually paying. So the government does not really have enough resources for now to roll it out in all the states at the same time.
Experts lamented that cervical cancer has inflicted profound loss and devastation on families across Nigeria, noting that it has painfully impacted the lives of women. Yet it is a disease that can be prevented. With HPV vaccines now available in Nigeria for eligible adolescent girls at no cost, communities now have the most effective tool to fight cervical cancer. And the nation has an opportunity to collectively save millions of lives. For a start, over 16 million girls will be protected in Nigeria alone by 2025.
And also tell the fathers, the husbands, to allow their wives, to support their wives, to let their children be vaccinated, the girl child, and also to allow the wives to go to Apo primary health care facilities where we have a gynecological machine that screens the cervix to detect this infection early and prevent it. And it's free of charge. Less women go there in their mass to assess this great opportunity. It is there, it is available.
The consensus is that HPV infection is a viral infection. However, the laudable introduction of the HPV vaccines, medical experts believe, will change the narrative and rid the country of needless deaths from the HPV virus, especially cervical cancer.
Now, the launch of a mass human papillomavirus HPV in Nigeria has continued to be applauded as the panacea for eliminating cervical cancer in the long run. Yes, you heard me right. The journey towards ending cervical cancer is on, and all stakeholders are on board. Who wants to be left behind in a campaign that has the potential of saving 7.7 million girls in a single round of vaccination? Let me not preempt our next story, which is about to be told by Abdusalam Jibril.
According to the World Health Organization, WHO, cervical cancer is the third most common cancer and the second most frequent cause of cancer deaths among women in Nigeria. In 2020, the latest year for which data is available, the country recorded 12,000 new cases and 8,000 deaths from cervical cancer. Towards mitigating this, Nigeria introduced the human papillomavirus HPV vaccine into its routine immunization system on 24th October 2023. The government aims to reach 7.7 million girls, that is the largest number in a single round of HPV vaccination in the African region, in a vaccination drive against the virus that causes nearly all cases of cervical cancer. Girls aged 9 to 14 years will receive a single dose of the vaccine, which is highly efficacious in preventing infection with HPV types 16 and 18 that are known to cause at least 70% of cervical cancers. The vaccine is provided free through the Federal Ministry of Health, supported by partners including Gavi, UNICEF, and WHO.
As you know, HPV is a virus that causes cervical cancer in women. And the HPV vaccine is a vaccine that prevents that cancer, prevents more than 80% of the cases. Cervical cancer is a very frequent and common cancer that affects more than 600,000 women in the world and more than 12,000 here in Nigeria. So we have a new vaccine that on the 24th of October was launched here in Nigeria for free in health facilities across 16 states in phase 1, and it's going to be rolled out nationally next year. Actually, out of the 16 states, 13 were able to launch it, and we had a campaign. We supported the Federal Ministry of Health and NPHCDA to have a campaign. And really, we hope that this new vaccine introduced here in Nigeria for free for the young girls really is going to reduce the mortality because of cervical cancer in Nigeria.
We have to be very grateful to the Nigerian government for taking this initiative. Before now, a lot of parents went ahead to purchase these vaccines for their children, the ones that could afford it, and they were buying as much as 35,000 to 70,000 per dose for this vaccine for their children. And realizing that the data you quoted, cervical cancer being the second female-associated cancer in Nigeria, that's after breast cancer, you realize that the morbidity and mortality is very, very high. A data quoted it as saying something about 21,000 women above the age of 15 being affected by HPV and about 8,000 deaths in 2020 alone in Nigeria. A data quoted something like that. And that's not too far-fetched from what is happening globally. And the challenge actually for cervical cancer is in the low and the middle income countries, where screening capacities are low, testing capacities are low, treatment is also not really much available, and looking at our financial situation in Nigeria. So it's a very, very laudable thing that the government of Nigeria decides to introduce the HPV vaccine.
A 5-day mass vaccination campaign in schools and communities was carried out during the inaugural rollout in 16 states and the Federal Capital Territory. The second phase of the vaccination introduction is set to start in May 2024 in 21 states. The government maintains that vaccination sites have been established in all 4,163 wards across the 16 states, including in the phase 1 rollout, to ensure no eligible girl is left behind.
The HPV launch needed two things in place, right? One, basically, is the vaccines available, and we have the vaccines available. More than 5 million vaccines were available for Nigeria and distributed to the states, and as well a strong mobilization campaign and commitment. Most of the states have been able to do that, and they have been rolling out a successful campaign. I am glad to share today with you that more than 3 million young girls, 9 to 14 years old, they have been already vaccinated against HPV. States like Bauchi, Jigawa, Taraba, Abia, they have coverages of more than 70%. So it's really incredible. The uptake, more than 3 million girls have been vaccinated since the 24th of October in the last few weeks. So it's really incredible. Still, there are as well some challenges. In some states, like for example, Enugu, Lagos, or Ogun, what we are seeing still is that there are many girls that still have not been vaccinated. And especially regarding rumors, misinformation, disinformation, that they are really going around. And something that we believe that it's needed, and we are supporting the efforts of the authorities and of the Federal Ministry of Health and the states, is to really respond to these rumors, to really pass the message that the vaccine is safe, it's effective, it's approved, and it works. And I think this is very important to address these misconceptions.
People always have apathy about new things, especially about vaccinations. There is a lot of apathy. And when you realize that the people that are really involved, the women who are in the real socioeconomic class, a lot of them are illiterate. So they don't easily get this information. So it's a lot of challenge. It's a doubting task that Nigeria has to, achieve this, and it has to do. And in countries that have achieved very, very high vaccination rates, it has to do with a lot of advocacy, a lot of talking, so that people get to know the advantage. Because, like you said, in countries that have achieved good coverage, they have realized that vaccinating girls between the age of 9 to 19 in some countries, and some countries 11 to 16. They have realized that they have been able to achieve 90% reduction in the cases of cervical cancer and transmission of human papillomavirus, as the HPV. So these are some of the advantages.
The World Health Organization says in Nigeria, more than 10,000 Nigerian women die of the disease each year, and there is limited screening for treatment. With the introduction of the HPV vaccination, health experts insist this number will greatly be reduced. They also urge awareness of the vaccination, which is increasing gradually through regular health talks about the vaccine during immunization sessions and advanced community outreach. The government is calling on Nigerians, including traditional leaders, to accord the same priority to HPV vaccination as they gave to polio to ensure the seamless introduction of the vaccine.
So our appeal is to work jointly with the state PHCDAs, with the Federal Ministry of Health, with the religious leaders, with the traditional leaders, with the communities, with the influencers, with the elders, to really debunk some of these rumors that we are seeing around. And maybe you have been seeing some of them saying that the HPV vaccine causes infertility, or like it's not good for the girls. I would like to say, no, that's not the case. We have a vaccine that has been approved and used in many countries, including the US, Europe, and many African countries. We have a vaccine that we know that it works. In many of the countries where this has been implemented, the vaccine, the number of cancers have decreased more than 80%. And we have even the approval here in Nigeria. NAFDAC has approved this vaccine, and has been approved for one single purpose. It's not for infertility, it's not for do any damage to any girl or as an anticonceptive method. It has only one purpose, is to prevent cancer among girls.
They say prevention is better than cure. So it's better to start preventing. It is better to take this vaccine. Yes, some of the challenges people talk about is that, okay, in some countries, they have reported challenges about this vaccine. But what they don't also know is that some of these countries who have reported these challenges, and at one point or the other, tried to stop this program, have regretted it. Japan is a case in study. Realize that Japan started it in 2007, and then by 2009 they started having, there are people who are anti-vaccine because of some of the challenges the world has faced about vaccine. So they go ahead campaigning about it. And then they started complaining that these girls are, they are coming down with chronic pain, they're having headaches, they're having some motor function disorders. But after a while, science is based on evidence. After a while, they went back to do a research and used the same population age that were not exposed to the vaccine, and found out that these things that these girls were complaining were also same. There was no major difference. About 25,000 of their women had already been exposed to cervical cancer. We actually have to encourage every child, no matter what anybody says. We have to encourage every child below the age of 15, any female child, to be vaccinated against cervical cancer.
Some experts insist that more than 16 million girls could be protected in Nigeria alone by 2025 with the HPV vaccination. They maintain that with the HPV vaccine now available in the country for eligible adolescent girls at no cost, communities now have the most effective tool to fight cervical cancer, and the nation now have the opportunity to save millions of lives.
Thank you, Abdulsalam. One can only appreciate the enormity of the significance of the introduction of the HPV vaccine to Nigeria if you have witnessed firsthand the excruciating pain of a person battling cervical cancer, then hopelessly and eventually watching her die, all from a situation that can be prevented. I am indeed, like many out there, excited that many families will no longer lose loved ones from cervical cancer in the future. Parents or guardians of eligible girls are expected to avail them of this unique life-saving opportunity with just one dose of the HPV vaccine. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, be safe. I'm Lydia Sams.